I have definitely struggled with like feeling like I'm old right now. So like, yeah, the idea of being in my 50s is terrifying.
Hey, everybody. I'm super excited to be here today. This is Cindy Bell with What the 50, and I have a special guest. I just love this person I have on today. This is Devon Doran. Hey, Devin.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining me.
I'm excited. I'm super excited for you and all that you're doing. I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you. So Devin is not a woman of a certain age in that she's not in her 50s. She's in her early 40s, but we are going to have a fun conversation today about that and the difference between being in your 40s and being in your 50s, what that kind of looks like. And it turns out that she and I have a lot of questions for each other and maybe some answers for each other too. But first, Devin, just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, because you're a total badass. So you better tell the truth. Who you are, what you do, why it matters, all that good stuff.
Okay, so again, my name is Devon Doran, and I own a real estate brokerage in Wasilla, Alaska. We started in October of 2018, and that's how Cindy and I actually became good friends, and we have just been going strong ever since. I've been selling real estate since I was in my early 20s, so I always kind of say like it's really the only job I ever have had,
Yeah.
and I'm a mom to two awesome girls, and I've over the course of my life have got the opportunity to have two bonus daughters, so that's really cool. And yeah, I'm a girl mom, big time.
Yes, you are.
All things girl.
And you're a cat mom. Are all your cats girls too?
They are. Only.
Okay, so broker owner of a real estate company. So what else do you do? Like, I know you're totally into CrossFit, right?
I've kind of transitioned out of CrossFit, although I'm still working with my coach from CrossFit.
Okay.
I don't know that I would, because it's like almost like we do a lot of the CrossFit minus the gymnastics, because that's not my jam at all. I'm like I don't know, the older I get, like the more motion sick I get. So like, I don't like to be upside down or like, and I was telling my daughter Macy this last night, because she's like back in the CrossFit scene. And I was telling her that she was asking me, oh, like, do you work on pull-ups or do you work on like toes to bar? And I'm like, no, I don't do any of that crap. Like my decision tree for whether I want to do it or not is like, does this make me look better naked?
I love that. That could be like the test for all of us.
Yeah, I'm like pull-ups, handstands. I'm like, I can get there a different way.
So Devin graces one of the chapters in my newly released book. I don't know if you've read it yet, but you're in there.
I haven't. I ordered it. It's not here yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm excited because I know what the chapter is about. And I was telling you the other day, it's as like not cool of a situation as it was. It's probably one of the coolest things I have done in my position as a brokerage owner.
But basically, for you people listening here, like, what are they talking about? I was working, Devin was my broker at her brokerage, but another opportunity came along for me that I'm like, oh, I feel like I have to take this, but I love Devin and her company and everything about it. And I didn't want to do it, but I kind of knew I had to. So we had the hard conversation, and then we made the decision together to make a video together about how to break up with your broker. We got out in front of the information because we didn't want people, because the real estate industry can be really gossipy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely like, it's funny because my daughter's about to graduate from hair school, and she talks about like kind of what a catty industry that is. And I'm like, I think we're right there with you. Yeah. It's just that way.
So let's talk like age and female stuff. You're 42.
Yep.
So as a 40-something-year-old woman, when you look at women my age, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think we're old?
So it's funny because I look at you, Cindy, and I'm like, totally not old. Like, I want to be like that. I hope I look like that when I'm 45. But I always think of this, like, I think sometimes like this is like the universe getting back at me or something. I remember being in college, and I was a really young college student. because I graduated when I was just barely 17. And I remember being in college and we were having a conversation about 30 being old. And this girl looked at me and she was like, hey, now I'm 28. And I remember thinking to myself, I didn't say this out loud, but I was like, you're old. I have definitely struggled with like feeling like I'm old right now. So like, yeah, the idea of being in my 50s is terrifying.
I remember when I turned 40, I'm like, oh, this is it. This is it. It's all downhill from here. And it is scary. The aging process can be scary.
Yeah. And I think every probably 40-year-old woman says this, like, I wish I knew, like, I wish I knew what I knew today or what I know today, but, looked like I did when I was in my 20s, where you just kind of like a little bit take things for granted. Like one of the things I think is really funny about being in your 40s is I never thought that I would be like wanting to make my face fatter. And like, I never even would have guessed that's a thing. They're like, you lose your fat pads in your face or whatever. And I remember like always being self-conscious about my round face. And now my round face is going away. And I'm like, I want that damn round face back. Cause guess what? Those round faces don't wrinkle. I have like a whole list of stuff. Like I was sitting down, like just jotting notes to this morning of like things that I'm like, I would love to ask Cindy about. So in your 50s, what do you think about the importance of having girlfriends? Like good, solid girlfriends?
I do think it's super important. I think it depends on your own personal like relationship. Like, do you have a spouse? Do you have like a significant other? I know if I weren't married, I would need a lot more girlfriends in my life. I know that, but I do love my girlfriends. I don't need a ton of them, and I don't need high maintenance girlfriends. That's one thing. I love a good friend who I can connect with like after 2 or 3 months and we just pick up right where we left off. So I don't need high maintenance, but I mean, girlfriends are super important because as we get older and older, statistically, the men are going to die off before we do. So we need each other, right?
Yeah. I find that like, it's harder to maintain friendships, I think now because, just like, shit happens. I have one of my best friends is a grandma, and like I get that that's like a priority. Like, I mean, that's pretty cool. I went to actually see her when the baby was 5 days old. And she's in Texas, and it was really cool to see her. But I remember thinking like, it's so freaking cool you're a grandma, and I'm so glad I'm not one. Right. I'm not ready yet, but okay. So there is like a huge trend of people like talking like on social media and TikTok and Reels about this whole concept of masculine and feminine energy. And I have to be honest, I've never heard it even mentioned until maybe like 2 years ago. So what the fuck is this?
Exactly. I've heard a lot about this too, and I have actually studied it a little bit. And then if it's what I think you're referring to, is that women naturally have a feminine energy, men naturally have a masculine energy. And when you try to be the opposite gender's energy, so a lot of women are being told, stay in your feminine energy, which does not mean be submissive, be small, play small, don't say too much. It means to lead more with vulnerability and your heart and softness, if that makes sense. But that doesn't mean you can't be an alpha female, right?
Right. It's just confusing because like, I felt like before this, has all came out that it's like, you're either like a boss bitch or a soccer mom. And there's like, not this crossing over, and they're like, lead with your feminine energy and your vulnerability, but you can do anything men can do. And it's just, I think it's confusing. It's hard. And it's like hard to like, I think naturally, I don't think this is like something that I've developed in my adulthood. I've always been this way. Like I've always been like super problem solver, task oriented. And that is definitely in your masculine. And then trying to like tap into your, because I agree, like if you're constantly on that masculine wavelength or whatever, vibrations or whatever it
Yeah.
is, it's very difficult to have a relationship because like, I mean, it's just difficult. And so I struggle with that. I have to like I have to be like ultra aware of that.
You're a total alpha female, right? But you've also had to be very independent and on your own for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You did shit yourself. So you've developed this independent spirit where you don't really need anybody, but you got married recently to Mike. And so there he is, this new man in your life. And do you find that maybe there's this sort of tension between letting him help you in the ways that you've always done everything for yourself? Because I know I kind of feel that with Jeff. Like, I'm like, you don't need to do that for me. I literally took care of myself for so many years. Being an Army wife, I had to.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel that struggle. Like, I mean, just as simple as like taking kids to school, and he's like home for the time that because he works, a rotating schedule, and he's like, it's okay to be like, hey, can you do this? And yeah, I'm just so accustomed and conditioned to like just handling it that it's like hard. It's like totally out of character for me to even ask for help. I don't know if you saw the thing I posted this morning, but I follow this pastor, Sarah Jakes Roberts. I don't know if you know who she is.
I saw it in your story, right? It was in
yeah, what she said, I posted that because it like kind of resonated with me, because I was trying to I was writing about, like things that I wanted to talk with you about today. And like what she said just was like, this is kind of the same thing. And she said, the woman you needed to become to survive is not the same woman you need to be in order to thrive. And I'm like, that just resonated with me really deeply. Because I was thinking about like, when you first get into real estate, people are like, you got to find your why. You got to find your why. And I remember my biggest why. I mean, I was 21 years old, had an infant. I had a college degree, but no work experience, and had been married, divorced, and had a kid in 18 months. And my only why was I just didn't want to be on welfare. Yeah. Like that was it. And I remember a very well-respected leader in our industry said to me one time, we were talking about the why, and I shared that with him. And I was probably 6 or 7 years into the, real estate. And it was clear that I was going to make a career of this at that point. And he said, you got to find a different one. And I'm not sure sometimes if I ever have.
That's honest.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, Devin, you're not going to be on welfare. like find something different. And I think sometimes I feel like I can lack a little bit of passion about it, because that why is just not a real thing anymore.
Let me ask you this. Do you love real estate? Because I'll be honest, I don't love real estate, but I love helping people. Mm-hmm. So what about you? Do you love real estate? I think you love it a lot more than I do, because you're really, really freaking good at it.
I do love it. There's definitely parts of it that I don't love. It's funny because I talk about this with my coach. The parts about it that I love are parts that a lot of people hate. So I love conflict resolution. Like I am really into it. I talk about this probably only with my husband, but like if I could start like a mediation company, wow. I actually love mediation. And even when the mediations don't resolve, I still enjoy that process. I love conflict resolution. I think that's what we're doing a majority of the day. The part that I actually hate about real estate is really like the marketing part. If I could just like shut my social media off, I would. But you just really can't. That's not an option, like really in real estate. Anymore. I mean, nope. No, it's not. And it's not that I mind people seeing like my life or anything. Like I feel like I'm pretty open and I'm an open book. It feels like exhausting to me to do it. Okay. I got another question back on the woman thing. Okay. So there's this whole movement, besides the masculine feminine thing, about self-care.
Yeah.
is that out of control in your opinion?
Yeah. I mean, what is self-care anyway? I do think it's out of control, that it's kind of taken on this whole new meaning, like self-care. And I think it's overemphasized right now. I think it's, sometimes you just have to get your ass up and go to work and do the hard things. And for me, that is self-care. Like, I don't see taking a bath or reading a book or lighting a candle, that doesn't resonate with me as being self-care.
Yeah.
Self-care is like doing the hard things, because hard things, discipline, that's when you experience success. And so to me, that's self-care. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I want to say it was maybe Coach Nate that talked about, I know he constantly talks about like keeping your agreements and most importantly, keeping your agreements with yourself. And that's probably the most valuable thing you could do, way more than getting massages or meditation or journaling. I mean, whatever it is, that's like, I just feel like there's this whole self-care movement that is just a little out of control. And I feel like I am aware enough to realize it, but I wonder, like, women that are 10 years younger than I am, like, you know what I mean? And because they're really like coming into adulthood in the whole, like on the onset of this whole self-care movement. And it's like, where does this end? Like, right. Where is this like separating you from the reality of what it takes to be successful or live like a happy, fulfilling life?
That's such a good question, because I think that the pendulum has probably swung too far. Mm-hmm. And I think that women in their 20s and 30s may have swung over to devoting too much time to self-care. And I don't say that in a judgmental way. I'll say this, the emphasis, especially in our industry, of your miracle morning. Here's what you need to do every morning. You need to meditate for 10 minutes and then read a book for 20 minutes. And then all these, other things that you have to check off every single morning in order to be successful, all those self-care things. Like, for me, it doesn't necessarily work. I do my daily focus every morning, where I know what I'm doing every day. And you do that every Sunday afternoon, right? Where you set yourself up for the week powerfully. I think that is really, really important. But frankly, I'm never going to meditate.
I've tried so many times.
I can't do it. And I'm never going to do yoga. I'm sorry. I love those people who can do yoga. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah. I feel like I haven't been running as much lately because I've had an issue with my hip, but I was telling Coach Nate one time how I feel like running was my meditation, because I feel like it's all about like clearing your head and whatever's in your head, and, creating space so that new ideas can flow in, I think is what the goal is behind it. But like when I meditate, I just lay there and think of all the things I need to do. When I run, running's never came easy to me. I've always had a difficult time running, and all I'm not even really thinking about anything. I'm just like trying to survive. And I feel like that always gave me this like, clear head, because I'm like, I'm just worrying about like breathing. Yeah. Which I think is the concept of meditation, but I could just never get there with it. I had to be doing something where I felt like I was literally going to die. And then that just kind of cleared my head. Like, I wasn't worried about like, a pissed off, agent, or, what I needed to do that day, or, things I was falling behind on. I was just like, I just need a breath of air to go into my lungs.
Right. I'll talk about cardio for a second and see if you agree. I don't do cardio anymore for weight loss.
It doesn't work. Well,
I do it for the endorphin rush and for, the benefits to your heart. But for me, it doesn't work anymore for weight loss.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's interesting how your body like changes. I remember I could like stop eating, like stopping eating doesn't work for me either. Right. That my body will just freeze up if I like drastically reduce my calories. And so, but I still like doing cardio. It's more of a mental thing. Like, I always joke and say like personal trainer is cheaper than a psychiatrist. Okay, well, this is kind of on the same level as the self-care thing. But this whole, we are inundated constantly with like this whole idea of like perfection and like the emphasis on like being youthful. And I think that's probably what's terrifying to 99% of people, whether they're, in their 30s and terrified of being 40, or in their 40s and terrified of being 50, or maybe I have this concept in my mind that when you're 60, after you're 60, you're like, I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
And I hope that's true. But I just, what do you think about that? I mean, like Jennifer Lopez, it's a perfect example. I don't know, she's like 54 or something like that. And that is your like benchmark. And you're like, oh my gosh, I am really slipping in life. And, I just wonder, like, how do you deal with that? How do you manage that?
It's a lot. I think about it a lot. I'm sure I think about it way more than I should. I don't even know who cares, right? I think about it a lot. Now, if I'm being really honest, there's a part of me that wishes I could just not even care. Like, go great, just be me and let it happen. But I care. And I want to look as young as I can for as long as I can. That's the reason I work out. It's the reason I make an attempt to look good. However, I do think that there's a point, like a tipping point, especially for women my age. I think there's a point where you have to kind of back off a little bit on doing all the things, because I think women can actually start to look older when they're my age and into their 60s, the more they do to try to look younger, then it actually has the opposite effect. And so I'm going to let it happen at some point, but I'm like 4.5 years away from 60. And so now I'm like, oh my gosh, like seriously, I'm going to be 60. Am I going to really let this go? Like,
I don't think it probably has to be like an all or nothing thing.
Yeah.
I think I just get concerned, and I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I don't think anybody ever sets out to like do so much of the things to maintain your youth that you no longer look like yourself. I think it happens gradually over time. And I see it with so many women my age. I mean, like, I've had women that I've ran into that are my age, I went to school with, and I don't even recognize them.
Right.
And, and I don't judge them, because I understand, like, I look at myself every day in the mirror too and think like, when did this happen? Or, when did these lines on my neck happen? And it just like, it happens gradually over time too. But it's like, how are we supposed to stay in the mindset? Like, I am not against any procedure that makes you feel good at all. No shame in that whatsoever. But like, how do you keep like still like a healthy mindset as opposed to like, I have to look like this unattainable being. And that's what I'm constantly trying to achieve, because you'll be chasing that forever.
Absolutely. I think it has to do with having a mindset of total self-love. And I know that sounds woo-woo, but really loving your damn self so much. And this takes time. I mean, it's still a process for me. Knowing who you are so profoundly, loving yourself so much, at some point you do allow this to happen. Now, like you, I don't judge anybody. Do whatever you want to do. I've had stuff done, not a whole lot, but I am dabbling in all of this, right? But at a certain point, I think every woman needs to say, okay, and gracefully walk into self-acceptance, whatever that looks like for her. Now, you said some of your friends are unrecognizable because they've had so much done. The opposite is also true. Some of my friends are unrecognizable because they have not taken care of themselves at all.
Sure. Yeah, I've seen that too.
It's like, I want to try to maintain this healthy middle ground. I hope I'm doing it, but I don't know. It's a great question. Like, I've never been enough. I've never been good enough. And that has to do with a lot of childhood stuff that I've carried with me. But I think that when you've been through so much, like, you know my story. I've been married and divorced twice, and now I'm married to Jeff, my third husband. There's a lot of baggage and shame that comes along with that, And so getting to the point where you're like, you know what? Screw what anybody else thinks. I no longer care. I'm actively choosing to take care of myself and to forgive myself and to be okay and just to say enough shame, enough drama, enough of that. I deserve better. And I'm at a place in my life right now where it's really time to start truly loving who I am. That doesn't mean I think I'm perfect. Doesn't mean I love everything about myself, or I'm not trying to get better, but being okay every single day, just saying, you know what? I did my best. I screwed up, but here I am. I'm still breathing. No one died. I did my best. And then there's tomorrow, and giving yourself a lot of grace.
So easy for me to think about business things in this context, but it's not easy for me to think about this in like terms of like relationships or, my relationship even with myself. I remember talking about this in one of like our Circle of Champions calls. Like we were talking about, if, we had a goal that we'd set, like a 90-day goal or something like that. And I think my 90-day goal was I wanted to make $100,000 in 90 days. I did it. And I was like, okay, this isn't like the feeling that I was expecting.
Yeah.
Like I was expecting like this, hell yeah, like I'm on top of the world. And I think it was Coach Nate in one of the calls that said, like you need to focus more on like the feeling you're trying to accomplish than necessarily like the checked off item, the to-do list because those are not the same thing.
Mm.
And you might have been able to achieve the feeling you were looking for without that checked off item, but you can't expect that you're going to achieve that feeling with this item if like you don't tie those two together. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how it was, but I feel like we're constantly in this like evolution, thinking that there's like a stopping point.
Right.
What do you wish you would have spent more time doing in your 40s?
Oh, that's good. I will say with my kids, because I think when I was in my 40s, I was like, okay, because I spent my 20s and 30s like being stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I hit my 40s, I'm like, okay, I got to make money. But I missed a lot, not a lot, but my kids were like youngish and coming into their teen years. And as you know, you can't get time back with your kids. When that's gone, it's gone. I also wish I had spent less time worrying about what other people thought of me. I wish I had found this unapologetic badassery mindset in my 40s instead of my 50s.
Do you think that would have been possible? I mean, yeah.
Probably not with the situation that I was in at that time. Probably not. Yeah. So,
I think part of your like badassery is just like acknowledging that and just being like, it's now for me. So
yeah, it is now. Like my 40s were kind of a blur, honestly. It's like what happened. But 40s are also a weird decade because you are entering that whole hormonal thing where you're starting to feel really different, and you're noticing things about yourself physically, mentally, emotionally. Everything feels like, oh, it's shifting. And you can speak to that right now, right?
Oh yeah, like just like randomly, like I'm just randomly sweating.
Yeah. Hey, weren't you going to start a podcast about like why the fuck am I sweating?
Yes. I still have thoughts of that.
Good.
I even one time had I don't know whether logo or like a cover for it made up.
Wow.
Just because I was, in a class and they're like, just take the next step. And so I was like, I'm going to do this. So I like found somebody on Fiverr to make me like a logo. And yeah, it's still definitely
that would be
on the list. Like what's something that we can do in our 40s so that we don't get in this mindset of like, my time's over. Like,
I think two things to start. Embrace the mentality that life is short, because I don't think we always understand that. And once you get into your 50s, you really start to see it, that life is really, really short. If you can embrace that, even if you don't feel it, embrace it and just say life is short and live every single day like it might be your last. That would, I think, help a lot of people make better decisions and do things that are actually more important, are going to have more long-term benefits for themselves. The other thing is get super focused on your health, because you can't take that for granted. Like eliminating sugar, it sounds like so trendy, but it is really, it makes such a difference as you get to be my age, how much better you feel and look and act and sleep when you get rid of sugar.
Sleep. That's one that came out of nowhere for me.
Oh my God.
That came out of nowhere. Like I used to be like, I could sleep through anything, go on camping trips, with people that snore, doesn't bother me a bit. And now I'm like, I'm lucky if I get, I'm on this whole natural regimen of supplements that is helping. But yeah, my lack of sleep came out of nowhere. And like, all of a sudden I was sleeping like 2 hours a night.
It's a big thing, because if you're not sleeping, I mean, your day sucks. And then think about that happens every single night. I am chasing sleep, like sleeping and pooping are like,
it's a thing.
It's really a thing, especially as you're getting older. So if you find a way to get sleep, however that looks for you, so important.
People, I think that is really minimized in how, because like I said, everything is confusing and everything is contradicting. Like work, give it your all, do whatever it takes, but get 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
That's what it's like, yeah. So, but sleep is so huge.
I used to think I was a hero for only needing 4 or 5 hours of sleep at night.
Yeah, no, it's sad. Like, and then you get anxiety about not being well rested. And yeah, it's true. I think that the health thing is a big thing. Be more, none of the rest of it, none of it matters. Self-care, girlfriends, none of that matters if your health sucks.
That's right. And actually really paying attention to what you're eating. We eat a lot of crap as Americans. We really, really do. And also the drinking thing, like pulling back on that and not drinking as much makes a huge difference. And I
feel like my body did that for me. Like,
really?
I'm like, I just hate, I can't handle hangovers like I used to. So it's not like that I don't drink, because I definitely do. It's not that I don't, overindulge here and there, but like it is few and far between, because I hate that feeling. And I also see the effects of drinking on, not just women, but like men my age that are definitely, heavy drinkers, and that manifests itself in so many ways in your body.
Oh yeah. I think people hit a point when they hit right around 40 or so, everyone kind of looks good until they're about 40. Regardless of what they do. And then when you're about 40, it starts to show. If you've made good choices for yourself, for your health, it shows. And if you haven't, it shows.
Yeah.
It's this really weird place. It's like
just arrives on your face.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Well, Devin, it's been so amazing to have you as my guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to you starting your podcast.
I know. Like I said, I think that the thing that gives me the anxiety is the technical aspect of it. Like, like I feel like there's like this mystery process that nobody tells you about, know?
Yeah, there is and there isn't. And that's what I felt. But you know what? I get on Zoom. I set up my ring lights. I have my little microphone and I just have a background and I go for it. And I hire out what you don't know. So I send it to my VA and he does the magic and uploads it. And it's really not as daunting as you think. It's It's all right here. You just make the decision to do it and you jump and you'll screw up, you'll fail, and then it gets better and better.
Yeah. I remember when we were at Shield Maiden, I remember Satema telling, he's like, you take the camera, you turn it around and hit record. And I'm like, he's lying. That's not what he really does. But I mean,
it is what he really does, because he just put out podcast episode 456 or something crazy today. And I was listening to it. He was in his car. I hear his car ding, 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 ding when he opened his door. And I'm like, he's on his damn phone recording a podcast. And then he loaded it. There you have it. So
guess what? People are listening.
I know it can be that easy. So
anyway, I think sometimes it doesn't even matter if people listen. Like, it's just like there's something like magical about just getting it out there.
So true. It's so true. Anyway, well, thank you for being my guest. I can't wait to see you. I'll see you in a couple months.
Yes, thank you. And I just want to say that I'm so proud of you. I am so proud of like what you're doing. I'm so anxious to get your book. Oh, okay. And I just love that, you like said you're going to do something, and here it is.
Well, thank you so much. And I got to say, if it hadn't been for you, Devin, I would not have gone to Shield Maiden, because you went before me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. I didn't know anything about it until you went.
I remember being there and I'm like, Cindy needs to be here. Cindy needs to do this.
So I really appreciate it. Like, you introduced me to this whole new world, and that's why I am where I am right now. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for listening. And please, if you enjoyed the program today, please feel free to share. I appreciate you. Get out there and start living your best damn life. Until next time, take care.